Well, thanks so much for joining me here today. Excited to get to learn more about you. We're here on the Ripple Effect with Ray podcast today. We have Mike joining us from 23rd Veterans. Can you tell me a little bit about you, Mike? How did you get started and why?
I served in the Marine Corps infantry right after I got out of high school. So I was back in 2000. I did a deployment during time of peace. And then in 2003, was staged in northern Kuwait, just south of Iraq, in case we were to go to war with Iraq. And we did. So I was part of the first wave across the border in the initial invasion, called the Iraqi invasion 2003. And I had some changes happen in my brain during my time in combat, and I wasn't aware of it. I didn't recognize it at the time, but it affected my life pretty greatly, especially about 5 years after combat. I started falling into some severe panic attacks and anxiety. I was having panic attacks day after day and nightmares, difficult time sleeping, trying to hold a professional job, going through all of this. And it led to the point that I didn't want to be alive anymore. The only thing I was looking forward to was being asleep. I just didn't, I hated being awake. And it led to a suicide attempt in 2011. Lucky for me, it was part of that suicide attempt that opened my eyes to ways to recover from what I've been experiencing. And once I figured that out, once I pulled out of that fog of anxiety and depression I was feeling, it became very apparent that I had these changes happen in my brain. So my subconscious was able to lock in all of these traumatic fears and memories from combat that were
Mm.
affecting me 10 years later. Until then, until like 2012, I had no idea that I had what we call PTSD, or that I had these post-trauma symptoms. I just thought I was dying all the time from like heart attacks or
Wow.
strokes or whatever it might be. So once I figured that out, I just got very motivated to learn about a memory. Like why did this affect me? Why did this change? And why was I able to pull out of it when my buddies were still struggling? That's what led to me wanting to develop this organization, came up with a vision for it, brought together a psychotherapist, a positive psychologist, a personal trainer, and put together this a 14-week program is what we run now. We call it functional mental wellness, functional mental health. And we can talk more about that if you like. But the idea is that functional medicine is where we are trying to optimize our body composition, our nutrition, so that we can optimize our physical health. Well, this is functional mental health. So we are optimizing our behaviors and our body composition, the things that research shows will optimize our mental health and our well-being. Yeah, I'd love to talk more about it if you like. That's my
I would love
backstory.
to
That's
hear
what
more
got me
about
into
it.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, please tell me more about the functional mental health piece of it.
Absolutely. Recent research shows that there are some very important neurotransmitters in our mental health. A lot of the listeners have probably heard of these: serotonin, dopamine, ox. I'll start with the problem. After experiencing a really tight team, this is teams across the board, whether it's military, law enforcement, sports teams, whatever it might be. In that environment, we have very healthy behaviors that will lead to optimized serotonin and dopamine. When we lose that team, we lose that neurotransmitter. We're lacking the oxytocin of that love and that trust and being able to be vulnerable with people, or the serotonin on being serving with the team and the physical touch and all of that. And especially if we're experiencing PTSD or trauma or social anxiety and we isolate ourselves, we're not serving anybody. We don't have a team. We don't have people we can trust. And that leads to very low levels of those neurotransmitters. And the side effects, or effects, should say, of having those low levels are things like depression and anxiety and low sex drive and difficulty sleeping. A lot of the ailments that we're facing, and this is, and we can get, it's a whole different story to get into this, like post-industrial revolution, how society is going this direction as a whole. I focus on military veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, correctional officers. So when we're experiencing all of these negative things, which are becoming very common in the veteran community, it's really, really easy for us to try to cover up that unhappiness with dopamine hits. So we'll go and pull a slot machine or crack a beer or open a porn app or whatever it might be that gives us that moment of pleasure to cover up all this unhappiness. So what we're doing in functional mental health We are putting ourselves through the behaviors that are shown to optimize oxytocin and serotonin, and we're utilizing dopamine to lock these behaviors in, to drop our bad habits and create the new positive habits over this 14-week program. So then by the time we leave the program, we have these behaviors drilled into us in a way that we want to perform them so that we can continue to optimize these neurotransmitters.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I think it's so important to kind of shift away from those instant dopamine hits, and they serve their purpose, right? But in terms of just longevity and like actually rewiring the brain for optimization, we need to figure out how to increase that oxytocin, that serotonin, right? I love that you touched on it. What would you say, whether it be in your business targeting the veterans and first responders, what would you say has been shifting in the industry over the course of since you launched your course trainings?
Sure. So the industry, when I launched, I would say the military veteran community still had a very negative stigma on anything mental health related. You use the word therapy and PTSD or suicide around military, and it was turned off. There's still a stronger stigma when it's active in the military than there is in the veteran community. The veteran community, though, has completely flopped. Like it's very comfortable for the majority of the people, at least people that I'm around, to be able to discuss it and understand it and know it's a thing and know it can help. What's still difficult though is to see it in ourselves. It's
Mm,
very rare that a military veteran's like, I need help.
mm,
So that's something that we're still working on. And what I recently expanded to serving other first responders outside of the military veteran community. And what I've noticed is the law enforcement is way behind military when it comes to mental health. The stigma is much stronger in the law enforcement offices I've worked with. Corrections, not so much. Firefighters, not so much. I think the stigma around that is training. And some of the stigma, I mean, it's real. It's real. There's a very legitimate chance that if we have certain mental health diagnosis that we're unable to perform certain job duties. We might get weapons taken away. We might not have the security clearance we want. So that I don't think the stigma is going to go away easily, and I don't think the stigma is unnecessary. I think on a certain level, like it's not just that people are wrong about you know disliking therapy in law enforcement, is that people legitimately dislike it because they're putting themselves out in an opportunity that might limit them professionally.
so there's this, like you said the word a couple times, there's a stigma about owning that you need help, right?
Right.
And so you're essentially trying to combat that stigma and let people know, like, hey, no, that there's so much you've seen, there's so much that you've dealt with in your life that, like, how can you possibly be okay? You know, like, no, it's okay to not be okay. And so how would you say this? I guess, shifting the stigma, how would you say that you are actually speaking to those people and letting them know, "Hey, like, no, suicide ideation is not okay. Like, your mental health is important, and how do we actually change it?"
I believe that trauma is not being treated correctly in what I would call the warrior class. And when we get it correctly, like there's a lot of really good people and really intelligent people that have developed wonderful trauma treatment programs over the years. But what's lacking is that the way that therapy is being taught, learned, certified is not the same way that the warrior class is willing to accept it.
Mm,
So the most important part, and any therapist would likely agree with me on this, the most important part of therapy is that the the person feels comfortable in the space and feels comfortable with the therapist. So if we don't feel safe on a conscious and subconscious level, and we try to recall these negative memories or emotions,
mm.
it can very easily and likely just reinforce the negative feelings and thoughts around those emotions. So it's really important to feel comfortable and safe before we begin any type of therapy. The problem with traditional therapy is we're taking, say, a law enforcement officer. They have to take off their vest, their bulletproof vests, and their weapon, the things that keep them the safest. And we ask them to go to often a clinical feeling environment. If it's the VA, you walk into a hospital, it's very sterile, and you sit down on a couch and you talk to somebody who has the ability to take your job away. Unsafe feeling. It is
Yeah.
so difficult to develop that relationship with the therapist and get to the point where we can even begin any type of effective therapy. So that's what I mean when I say I feel like it's not being treated correctly in the warrior class. So what we're doing in 23rd Veteran is very different. We actually don't even have therapists involved. We have therapists create the programs. Their psychologists create the programs and help in that and use the research and the creation, but we don't have a therapist in the group with them.
Yeah.
The very first thing that we do in our programming is really strong group cohesion. That's the survey research shows that's the number one factor in effective group therapy is the group cohesion. So we send people to the other side of the country where they survive for a week together in the wilderness. And during a survival expedition like that, when you're in an uncomfortable, unfamiliar place, it is so easy to drop those barriers of judgment and vulnerability and be able to be ourselves and share things that we haven't felt comfortable sharing sometimes ever in life. So we come back from just 5 days of surviving the wilderness together, guided, of
Sure.
course. And we have this super tight team that we enjoy being vulnerable with. We enjoy sharing the things we don't normally share. And in addition to that, we have friends again. A lot of times folks are feeling very isolated on friendship, so they want to be a part of this group. They want to continue in the program, which is often unusual for therapy and group therapy programs.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah,
it's
I'm
14 weeks to continue to
yeah.
do that. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Well, I was just gonna comment. I'm glad that it's, you said it's like supervised and people can be themselves. No naked and afraid over here. So
Right. No naked, sometimes afraid.
sometimes afraid to
Fears that are safe for us to face
explore.
and take
Yeah,
into learn.
exactly. In a safe setting, not in, like you said, like who wants to go to a sterile office and like look at white walls and like share their deepest, darkest? That doesn't
That's
sound
true.
like somebody would like, I volunteer to do that.
Yeah.
But so it sounds to me like you have something that's been working really well for you and creating like a, outdoor wilderness program, the program that is actually takes place over, the course of 14 weeks. What's been a little bit more frustrating or challenging to navigate?
The most challenging thing to navigate is convincing people to join the program that don't want to be found. They don't want to be part of anything that therapeutic. They don't want to identify with that. They don't want to go to a gym. So I didn't mention that. One of the unique things about our program is that we utilize something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's one of many chemicals that are released after our heart rate's up that allows us to remember and to learn better. So we do all of our group therapy activities after fitness because we can learn better for the next 4 hours. So we can help these behaviors set in. So yeah, we're asking people to come out of isolation, get on an airplane, go to the other side of the country with a bunch of people they don't know, join CrossFit. Often we use CrossFit, it doesn't have to be that, for 14 weeks for this group therapy style program. And there's some really solid rules. They can't drink. There's no drug use. There's no over medicating, prescriptions only. There's no complaining for 14 weeks. There's no watching the news for 14 weeks. So it's a super high commitment program. And to walk up to somebody who doesn't want to be a part of it and convince them to join it, it is definitely challenging. Word of mouth helps quite a bit on that. The transformations that people experience, and they can share that with their friends and community and coworkers and what it might be.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we do in the organization is, while I'm talking about therapy with you, we don't use that word when it
Mm.
comes to our programs. If you look on 23rd Veterans website, there's a fundraising side where we can talk about helping people that are struggling. There's a program side where we don't use words like PTSD in therapy and struggling. There's a phone ringing in the background? Is that coming through?
Right. It'll get cut out, don't worry.
Okay. So yeah, if you look at the website, like we don't want to do it. We don't use the word therapist or therapy or PTSD. We'll say things like trauma, recover from trauma, be the better you. And there's another thing that I truly believe is that we're supposed to get PTSD, what we call PTSD. We're supposed to like our body is supposed to be able to prepare for life and death situations.
Yeah.
and it learns what those life and death situations are when we're in them. So if we get in a car accident with a red car, was the other car, our body's going to learn like a red car might be a life and death situation. That could
Yeah.
send us into a panic attack because it's preparing us for that life and death situation. I think it's a positive thing in a lot of occasions for us to have what we call PTSD. The problem is that if it's not a recurring traumatic situation, if it's actually not going to cause life and death in our future, we want to be able to train that out of us.
Mm, I agree. I completely agree. It's there for a reason, and there's a lot of trauma that gets stored in our body, and we need avenues to navigate, "Hey, is this life and death, or is this something that will actually help or heal us,
Right.
or do we need to reprogram our brains to
Mhm.
actually conquer this said fear or panic?"
Yeah.
I think I think this word PTSD comes up so much. People misunderstand or misidentify and minimize it, right? They just
Yeah.
have, like, accepted it that that's a part of their life now, rather than actually trying to reprogram, right? Where do you hope that 23rd Veteran will grow? What's the future? What's the dream?
There's two different directions of growth. One is serving people as they transition out of the military. The military does a really good job at creating military members. Like, we have this active, up to 13-week program learning on a conscious and a subconscious level how to talk like we're in the military and act like we're in the military and be comfortable in a killing environment. And sometimes we're learning how to be comfortable killing people. And then when we get out of the military, we get a PowerPoint class on how to get a job and dress like a civilian. It's like we've taken this mindset that knows how to be comfortable in a killing environment, and that's what we're prepared for. That's what we train for. That's how we talk. That's how we communicate. And when I say that communication, a lot of us has probably experienced that. People that are prepared for that have a very vulgar language, very intense, very loud often, and that's not very acceptable in the civilian world. We try to come to the civilian world and we use that same language, we use that same intensity, and people don't want to be around us.
Right.
And it's really hard to develop that trust and understanding why civilians make decisions so much differently than we do. So having a 14-week transition program coming out of the military, I think, is the lowest hanging fruit in combating what we've had for this epidemic of suicide and anxiety in our veteran community, which has been increasing every single year. Every year, the VA shows that suicide is the worst year that we've ever had in the military veteran community. And that's still true. So this previous year is the worst year we've ever had. The other type of expansion is the demographics we serve. So we've began expanding to law enforcement and firefighters and corrections and first responders and 911 operators. I think that expansion could continue. So what we do can obviously be applied to anybody across the board. The reason that we serve the people we serve is because people are donating for that. So we're spending donated dollars on these demographics. That's what folks are choosing to donate for. And I think as the mental health becomes more of a talked about subject in the community, those donating avenues will continue to open up. I could see being correctional facilities transitioning prisoners back into civilian lifestyle as well.
It's amazing and so, so needed. Mike, where can people find you?
23rd Veteran. So 23rdveteran.org. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We have a LinkedIn page. It's hardly used. I think the LinkedIn might just say find us on Facebook and Instagram. If people want to help, there's a couple fun ways to do it. One is a fitness fundraiser. We do something called Ruck Life. So if you want to put a backpack on and carry some food and clothes that you're going to donate to people in need, you can come out and do that. You walk up to 10 miles with that backpack with us. Sometimes it's very challenging. Donate the food and clothes you carry, and also fundraise for these mental health programs at the same time. We also have something called Shield Circle for those that wanted to join our monthly giving program, and there's a lot more opportunities to be closer with the organization when you do that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mike. It's been such a pleasure to get to chat with you and learn more about what you're up to. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.